Story 1. Now, this won't be a big entitled story, and the kid in it isn't all that entitled either. The cast, me, the entitled kid, and my best friend. As I mentioned in my previous post, I'm not living in the same country I grew up in. So, whenever I visit, I hang out with my friends as much as possible. This particular visit, though, was a bit strange for me. For some reason, at that time, whenever a random person approached me, I had this uneasy feeling that they might try to rob me not because of their appearance, but simply because I didn't know them. One day, my best friend came over and asked if I wanted to go with him to buy some snacks. We did this almost every day, and I enjoyed it, so I said yes. I asked my mom for some money, but she told me she wouldn't give me any since I'd been going out to buy snacks nearly every day. That was fair enough. In our house, we have a small piggy bank where everyone can drop spare change and take some when needed. So, I grabbed a few coins from there, about 4 or 5 reals, which is the currency in Qatar, and headed out with my friend. We were cycling around, trying to find something random to do before buying food. There's a park called the skateboard park, and I remembered my brother used to take me there with his friend after buying snacks. I suggested we go there. The only issue was that I didn't actually remember where it was. My friend said he knew the way, but I didn't believe him. He has this habit of pretending to know things just for fun, and we usually end up laughing about it. Sure enough, he led me around nearly the entire neighborhood before I finally called him out on it. He laughed and told me to look forward, and there it was, right in front of us. He grinned and said, "See? I told you I knew it." I looked to the right, saw the store, and told him he should have mentioned it was near the shop instead of making me circle the area like that. We didn't go into the park itself since neither of us planned to do any stunts. Now, something to note about me, I'm not athletic at all. I'm quite short for my age and can't really run, cycle fast, or swim well. After a bit of riding, I suggested we take a break and sit at a bus stop. We rested there for a while, chatting, until we decided to head home. That's when we saw this kid walking toward us. He looked about our age. Instinctively, I turned to my best friend and whispered, "He might try to rob us." My friend just rolled his eyes and said I was overthinking it. The kid came closer and said, "Hey, do you guys have some cash?" I blinked and said, "Sorry, what?" He repeated, "I just need some cash to buy stuff. Can I have, like, 1 real?" At that moment, I only had 4 reals total. I said, "Sorry, no, I don't have money on me." I tried to move slowly because the coins in my pocket would make noise if I walked too fast. Then, the kid turned to my best friend and asked, "Do you have cash?" My friend replied, "No, I don't." The kid paused for a moment before saying, "Okay, then can I borrow your bicycle?" We both answered, "Sorry, we need them." He pointed toward a nearby school I used to attend and said, "Well, you study there, right? After I use it, I can just keep it there, and you can pick it up later." Now, in my neighborhood, there are a lot of bicycle thefts, so I wasn't about to take that risk. I said, "Sorry, no, I need it, and we have to go." He just said, "Okay," and walked off. We started pushing our bikes and got ready to ride away. Just as I was about to pedal off, the same kid came back. This time, he grabbed my shoulder and tried to hop onto my bicycle. He said, "Maybe I can stand on your bike's peg, the small footrest on the back, and you can take me where I need to go." He started slipping because my bike didn't even have pegs. I told him, "I don't think that'll work." He gave up and said, "Okay," before walking away again. We finally rode off and stopped at a store. I told my best friend to stay outside and keep an eye on the bikes while I went in to buy snacks. I took a bit too long, so he came inside to help me pick things out faster. We paid, left the shop, and thankfully, our bikes were still there safe and sound. Would you like me to continue refining and expanding this version slightly to better match your usual storytelling length, around 800 plus words, with more character reactions and tone? Story 2. I'm in a wheelchair, but I'm not paralyzed. This is relevant to the story. I can stand and walk for brief and often painful periods, but mostly I'm in a chair. While I can't drive, I can use cars which aren't kitted out for wheelchairs, because I can get myself from wheelchair to seat, and my chair folds up and fits in the back of most cars. I rely on friends, family, public transportation, and occasionally taxis to get me places to do my shopping. I can get most places by myself, but getting back with shopping proves an issue. Today, I was in my local town at a shop which specializes in frozen foods. It's set out with rows of large freezers and then shelves above those. The tops of the freezers are about level with my shoulders, and I can't reach anything on the shelves. They wear a uniform which is red and black with the shop's name on them. I'm wearing jeans and a blue t-shirt. I've done my shopping when I get a message from the friend who has been my lift into town. Her car's battery is dead. She's had to call her mechanic to come and give her a jump start. I realize I probably can't get from the shop to the car park before her mechanic gets there and jump starts it. So I tell her I'll wait in the shop if she could swing around and pick me up from there. The shop is, understandably, colder than outside, and I have frozen food in my bag. Which is how I came to be sitting in my chair by the exit with my smaller shopping bag next to me, playing on my phone and waiting for a message to tell me the car is working. Random woman, I need some help here. The staff are doing some kind of large restocking, so there's only someone at the checkouts when there are people to check out. She's just come up to the checkout and hasn't been noticed yet. I assume she's talking to one of the staff. Random woman, on a louder tone, hey, I need to be checked out. I was still playing on my phone. Random woman, stop playing on your phone and start helping me. I look up, and there are approximately 0 staff in sight. Also, she's looking at me. Me, what? I don't care if you're on your break. It's unprofessional to just sit there and play on your phone when there's a customer. I don't work here. I gesture at my chair and my shopping bag. Random woman, well, why would you be sitting there if you didn't? Do your job. I don't work here and I'm in a wheelchair. I don't think they'd hire me when I can't reach the shelves. At that moment, my phone goes. The car is working again. My friend is on her way. My little bag goes on my lap. My brakes go off and I turn to leave. She storms over and grabs my handles. Rule 1 of dealing with people in wheelchairs. Don't touch the chair. If it's life or death, or they've asked you to push them, that's okay. Otherwise, don't touch my chair. Especially not when I've been shopping, and my bigger shopping bag is hanging between the handles, so my balance is a little different. I slam my brakes back on, and there's some awkward squeaking between my tires and the floor. Random woman, you're not leaving until you do your job. This commotion has, thankfully, attracted someone who actually does work there. Staff member, are these yours? Do you still want them? Random woman has left her items on the checkout to come and assault me. Me. Look, someone who actually works here. Now you can get lost. I want to see a manager. I want her. Gesturing at me, fired. Staff member. I, she, we. The poor kid was probably trying to articulate that they probably couldn't hire someone in a wheelchair to stock shelves. She doesn't work here. There's a horn honking from outside and my friend is there, so I wheeled off as fast as I could and left the poor staff member to argue with the random crazy person over whether I was employed or not. Who knows, maybe I got fired just to placate her. Story 3. Disclaimer to the U.S. readers. This takes place in a socialist haven, where you get welfare if you're unemployed and where the trains and buses are safe for all to use, and where it's normal to use public transportation, even as a 1%er. Here we go. I had a colleague in the Volunteer Armed Forces, National Guardish, who would never ever lift a finger unless something good came to him, and he always expected people to help him. He was kind of a poor soul who had been lost most of his life, never really had a job and had no education, but he did find some meaning in the uniform. He had huge issues with money. Whenever he got his welfare check, he would spend it all within a week on video games, a new TV or something like that. The rest of the month he would beg scraps from the rest of us and borrow money. He always paid back the money, but he always had such a big debt to the rest of us that when he finally got the welfare check, most of it would disappear in seconds. Eventually, he got kicked out of his apartment for forgetting to pay rent. He was of course furious that the city council wouldn't pay the bills for him, because it's not my fault I forgot to pay. Our platoon leader chose to go above and beyond for this guy, and chose to take him in. Not only having 2 teenagers in the house, he now had a third and even more useless adult teenager living with him. They agreed that the platoon leader's wife would help him with finances, that he didn't have to pay for food, and that the rent he paid the platoon leader didn't even cover half of the expenses they had, with an extra mouth to feed. As you might be guessing, the guy has some serious issues with life in general, and especially money. The guy was like 35 and still couldn't manage on his own. At some point, he started not paying tickets on public transportation. Sure thing he would get a fine, but being on welfare, he had no way of paying it, so he just didn't. He even boasted to his squad of being so clever, as he was riding free of charge, when the rest of us was paying a crapload to get on a train. He literally told me, "It's no problem, I just consider it a loan from the government." I told him in no uncertain terms that what he was doing was going to land him in so much trouble, he would never in his life get out of it. His reaction was to completely cut off any communication with me, despite both of us being non-commissioned officers and having to communicate on a regular basis. It's completely fair of him to think of me as an idiot for sticking my nose in his affairs, but when it starts to hurt the company and the soldiers are complaining about a hostile work environment and talking about stopping as volunteers, things are out of hand. I let the platoon leader know what was going on, telling him that not only was this guy boasting of committing a felony crime, he was also refusing to talk to anyone who called him out on it. The platoon leader took note of it and went up the system with it. At the same time, I found out he was borrowing money from a couple of new soldiers and not paying them back. I told the platoon leader, who told his wife. The platoon leader and his wife decided to pay the soldiers back from their own pocket, as one of the guys was studying and didn't have a dime to spend on anything. At the same time, they raised the rent he was paying for living in their house, to cover the money they had paid back on his behalf. He of course got super furious and started yelling at the platoon leader's wife, who kicked him out straight away. He called the platoon leader straight away, crying on the phone and saying how sorry he was. They let him stay. Being on welfare, you have to do these pointless courses in writing a resume, or you have to do some kind of practical activation job, like picking up trash or sweeping the streets. He started not going to these things, stating that he had to go on some super important military drill, and the city people believed him. Only thing is, being a volunteer force, everything is evenings or weekends. I called the city council and gave them an anonymous tip that there wasn't any training or drills. They called him and gave him 1 hour to meet, or he would get taken off welfare immediately. Remember the story of him borrowing money from broke students and not paying back? Well, a month later, he did the exact same thing. Again, I called the platoon leader, who told his wife. The guy once again got super angry at the platoon leader's wife. The platoon leader went straight home, but didn't say a thing. The leader waited until the guy left to go hang out with a friend, and then took all the guy's stuff and threw it in the yard and called the locksmith to come and change the lock straight away. The guy got super pissed and started telling everyone that me and the leader were against him. Well, it wasn't really a lie. Being homeless kinda sucks, and being on the council watch list for potential welfare scammers sucks too. So I was actually pretty happy and thought I had my revenge. The guy got so pissed he started calling my work and writing my Facebook friends outside the armed forces telling how big of an idiot I was. I had decided that I had made enough phone calls, but this kinda broke my brain. I straight away called both the city council and the national tax authorities to tell them of his free or charge train trips. The city and the national authorities started working together, sharing the information they had on him. Last I heard of the guy was when I read a headline in the newspaper of a local man matching his age who got a 60 days jail sentence and a 40,000 USD fine for systematic cheating with train tickets. Having committed a felony, technically 300 felonies, and going to jail, he lost his security clearance and got kicked out of the volunteer forces. Story 4. This happened back in July or August of 2020. The global health crisis began right after my college graduation, so I was out of luck when it came to finding a job. I tried applying to several places, but it was a rough few months. Eventually, I decided to go freelance and became a writer for hire. After some time, I decided to buy myself a Nintendo Switch. I'd wanted one for a while, so when the quarantine restrictions eased and the malls reopened, I took the opportunity to finally get one. I was really excited because I had saved up for it, with a little extra help from my loving mother. When I got to the store, I noticed there were only 2 customers ahead of me, a woman in her mid to late 30s and her young daughter, who looked like a toddler. I didn't pay much attention to them and went straight to the counter to place my order. I asked for the console, 2 games I'd been wanting to play, and a Pro controller. The 2 clerks behind the counter were very kind and helped me out right away. As I was getting my payment ready, the woman I had seen earlier suddenly tapped my shoulder with a look of disapproval. Her daughter, who seemed embarrassed, stood behind her looking like she wanted to leave. Me, yes. Entitled mother, that's mine. She pointed at everything I was buying. Clerk, ma'am, we have more consoles in the back. She completely ignored the clerk. Entitled mother, we were here first. Me, I was at the counter first. Entitled mother, get a job. My daughter deserves that more than you. Me, excuse me. Now getting irritated. I worked for this. Entitled mother, you stole that money. What would your mother say? Me, don't insult my mother. I pointed a finger at her. Insulting my mother has always been a sore spot for me. Neither of us was backing down. One of the clerks even brought out another Nintendo Switch for her, but she didn't want it. For some reason, she specifically wanted mine. Her daughter looked completely miserable, her head down, as if she wished she could disappear. Then things escalated in a way none of us expected. The woman suddenly shoved me out of the way. She was surprisingly strong, considering I weighed around 70 kilograms at the time. She stepped on my foot first, then used her body to push me off balance and snatch my spot at the counter. The 2 clerks, her daughter, and I were all stunned as I stumbled and fell onto a stack of empty boxes by the counter. Thankfully, they were light, so I wasn't hurt. Here's the kicker. When she stepped on my foot, I instinctively put an arm on the counter to steady myself. When she shoved me, I tried grabbing something to stop my fall, and without realizing it, I grabbed the Nintendo Switch. It fell to the floor with a loud thump. Apparently, I rolled onto it as I fell because it ended up underneath me when I got up. She looked quite pleased with herself and even called for her daughter to come along, completely unaware that the console was now lying under the pile of empty boxes. The loud noise caught everyone's attention. Staff and customers from nearby stores came over to see what had happened. One of the clerks helped me to my feet, while the other picked up the console. When she lifted it and gave it a gentle shake, you could hear fragments of glass rattling inside. The entitled mother's confident expression disappeared the moment she realized what she had done. She tried to run away with her daughter, but several onlookers blocked the exit. Security arrived soon after, having noticed the growing crowd. Social distancing rules were still being enforced. After all, the mother was clearly panicked, while her daughter stood there crying. I had more than enough proof, 2 witnesses and a security camera right by the counter that captured everything. The woman tried to make excuses, saying things like, "He was yelling at me, he pushed my daughter, and even, that was his console, he broke his own property." That last one made me laugh out loud because it was so ridiculous. Eventually, the store manager stepped in and told her she would have to pay for the broken console. Its screen was shattered, the dock was bent and chipped, and the controllers felt loose. If she refused, the store and the mall would take action against her. Her daughter didn't say a word. She just looked ashamed and apologized softly to everyone around. In the end, I received all of my purchases within the hour, along with a 10% discount as compensation. The woman was officially banned from the store. Sometimes, karma doesn't need time to work, it shows up immediately. Story 5. So, without giving away too much, my company mostly deals in customer service via phone and mobile messaging. They kindly give us off both Thanksgiving and Black Friday every year. However, one rule they have in place basically, because they can regarding overtime is silly and hopefully they learned, thanks to some revenge to the company's detriment. This rule regards overtime. Whenever an employee works beyond their 40 hours, they are paid time and a half. If that week they do not work 40 hours, either because of time off or a holiday, they would only receive regular pay for working extra time. This is in compliance with state law where the company is headquartered. On Thanksgiving Eve this year, as we refer to the Wednesday before Turkey Day, we had a major tech issue that brought the company to a standstill. Normally, this wouldn't be too crippling to our clients because our phones are traditionally dead before the holidays as people travel en masse. On this 2020, our year of our virus, we were getting a normal day's volume, and we could do hardly anything to help them with half our software out of commission. We explained the issue, noted their question, and promised they would hear from us no later than Monday. Management frantically watched the calls pour in and the promises to call back build up, and took to the online forum, "We all work from home," begging for employees to work overtime from Friday to Sunday to chew a substantial way through the call list. In anticipation of the extra cash, volunteers amassed. I was ready to throw in my hat as well, but having been at the company for a long time, knew better. But I wondered, would this be the one time they'd rethink their stringent policy and grant the extra pay? Innocently, I forgot about the policy and exclaimed on the thread in delight, "Yes, I could use the time and a half to buy gifts this year." You could see 3 members of upper management start typing, and stop, for a decent 5 minutes. Finally, one of them must have gotten the green light and worked out the pleasant and warm company speak wording to let us know we could go EFF ourselves if we thought we could get extra holiday pay for working Thanksgiving weekend. Boy, did those volunteers drop off real quick. And does this mean that I just subjected the whole crew of phone reps to extra work on Monday? No, we'd be overworked the week after a holiday anyway. There are only so many people we can physically call in an 8-hour day. No, for those extreme high-volume times, they deploy the management. Good job, fellers. Management is salaried and doesn't get extra money for extra time. Edit to note that today is that Monday, and I happen to be off on paid time off today. It'll be interesting to see the fallout tomorrow. Update: I just logged in about a half hour ago for my shift a bit early, as I usually do when I anticipate reading lots of emails and the employee forum. Oh boy. Apparently 4 regular employees bit the bullet and helped on Friday. To put that in perspective, they were trying to get 3-5 people per team to help. And we have about, cheats and glances at forum, 8 main teams. They had a fifth of what they needed, at best. Those poor 4 sods. Usually by the Tuesday after a holiday weekend, it's back to normal. The Monday after, we usually have about 15 pages of backlog because of people who insist on calling during the holiday over the weekend and leaving a message. Today, Tuesday, I'm looking at 32 pages of backlogged messages. Well, half the head honchos in charge of our part of the business have been awfully quiet on the forum these past 2 days, it appears. The other half, well, you need to be trained in the job to do it. So the head of payroll, for instance, is not involved. But those guys are acting like cut-rate cheerleaders. "Simon, team, we can do this." Well, sure. But you aren't getting cursed out by impatient customers with 4-day-old problems. Is anything going to change? Probably not. But I guess we shall see around Christmas if someone decides to cripple the internet again before that. Story 6. My husband and I met almost 11 years ago. At that time he had not known where his only son was and had not seen him for 2 years. Before the disappearance, Hubby had been involved daily and taking him to daycare and even the mom to work, until her boyfriend was arrested and transferred to another state for charges he had there. Hubby sold his motorcycle to help her pay bills, but instead she packed up and took off to use that money to bail him out and live in the state he was transported to. He tried for months talking to her parents, but they claimed they didn't know anything. We married right before his deployment, and I decided to start a search, hoping he'd be allowed contact with his son before deploying. Was able to find her and discovered she was back in state and had abandoned their child with her parents. She allowed him visitation, only if we paid for his birthday party at Chuck E. Cheese, so we did this gladly. My husband remained in contact daily until his deployment overseas. He continued to try calling when he had access, but they would not answer and eventually changed their number again, so he no longer had access. We'd find out later that they were also telling him his daddy didn't want anything to do with him. I continued to monitor her social media and right before hubby's return discovered that she had several charges in different counties and was on the run. So as soon as he returned stateside we filed custody. We also discovered she had abandoned her infant with her brother in another state, as her parents refused to take him and had called CPS to pick him up. They only wanted the child she had with my husband because he was paying support. Through this process I had been angry at my husband because he never fought for his rights, but what I learned and what most men feel is that he believed he had no rights and done whatever they wanted. He and his family would have to pay support in order to have any type of visitation with Social Security. He didn't know that he could go to court and file for his rights, as most men don't. The grandparents were both druggies who eventually dragged their daughter into it, and they tried pawning her onto my husband because her habit had become too much for them. When he discovered their lifestyle, he left, and she showed up a few months later pregnant. At the time of filing for custody, they awarded the grandparents temp custody during transition, because the mother was a wanted fugitive and could not be involved. Our state doesn't even allow grandparents' rights, but judges here will give custody to grandparents before they give it to a dad, because they want the government funding they get from collecting child support from dads. We went through a year and 3 months battling a judge that hates men and straight up told my husband his military career made him look unstable, so she'd never turn over custody to him. So he gave up his military career. In this year and 3 months, these people would break every court order put in place and have zero responsibility for them. They wouldn't use a car seat. They were doing drug deals around him. He stayed sick due to the cigarette smoke in the house. They refused legal visitation time and took off out of state to hide him. They wouldn't take him to school. They allowed the mother to be in the home, even though there was a no-contact order in place for her. Being determined and maybe a little psycho when it comes to my kids, I'd managed to find things our attorney could not. We discovered he didn't have a bed there because they had too many people living in the home. We found he had an STD at one point which caused CPS involvement. They were abusive to their other grandson, calling him names and beating him when they'd visit because he was autistic, and they themselves had been arrested for making and selling meth, and the grandfather had been arrested for beating the grandma. The drug charge was not publicly known, I'm guessing because they ratted. However, there was a case in figuring out what to legally do with property that was forfeited after the arrest. I found this and proof of the bio mom being allowed in the house that resulted in us getting temporary custody. A year and 1 month in, and the grandparents failed a drug test. The daughter had twins that were taken by CPS immediately after birth due to drug use while pregnant and her current fugitive status. Still, the judge refused to give over custody to a willing and able father. Our attorney, also prior military, put pressure on the judge, and we had sent a complaint to the state Supreme Court, along with every single state official detailing how this judge was doing everything against the laws in our state. Eventually, she couldn't take the pressure and gave us custody. It came out that she was hoping the bio mom would get her legal stuff in order and she could give over custody to her instead. In August of 2013, we brought our baby home permanently. However, we were forced to give the grandparents visitation, which lasted until March of 2014. They continued smoking around him, making him so sick he wound up on multiple medications. They took him to do drug deals, which he told his counselor about, and also told him he wasn't my husband's son, and they were going to get custody back, resulting in lots of nightmares. They'd also been telling him my husband never loved him or had anything to do with him, which took weeks in counseling and pictures proving otherwise. They put this boy through hell. His teeth were rotted out of his head, and at 4 and 5 he spent his life in front of 2 TVs with cartoons and video games. He only ate fast food and pop and was too weak to pedal a bicycle. He watched his mother get beat and a knife to her throat, and then she'd disappear for hours to go do drugs, leaving him at 3 to care for an infant. They mentally abused him and used him for child support. The last time he came home reeking of cigarettes, so bad it threw my older daughter into an asthma attack, and that ended their visits. The things they told him and done have trickled out through the years. He remembered one of the times we were refused visitation was because she had taken him and hid in a hotel. He watched her steal things from stores, and she was arrested 4 times at their house through all of this. Yes, I called and reported it every time. These horrible people have not been a part of his life since then. Bio Mom has done a stint in prison and is once again running from new charges and her probation. He will be 14 this year, and he's very needy with me because I make him feel loved and safe. This child is one of the biggest blessings I have ever had. He is so thoughtful and kind and tries to take care of me. His father is scared to let him go anywhere away from us because of the trauma of not knowing where he was caused, and then hearing what all he went through in that time. I've never met more horrible people in my life, nor have I ever imagined how resilient he would be after going through it. He is so very smart and special and a gift I thank God for daily. We both agree that even with my husband's deployment, which was a pretty bad one, this was far worse than anything else. We've spent years now fighting for fathers' rights across the country and been a part of some law changes in our state. We have to inform men of their rights. We have to give them the resources because children deserve both parents. It's disgusting how much it costs them in legal fees just to be a parent, and maybe one day it won't be necessary. We have people working on the government level to change the laws that created this inequality. My husband is an amazing father. Not only did he raise my 3 children from a previous marriage, but we have done youth and college-age ministry together, giving kids a family where they didn't have one before. We've provided a home, food, insurance, gas money, and phones. He will never stop caring and loving those that were abandoned. There are so many men out there that are amazing fathers, but don't get the chance to be. They take their lives daily. They have everything taken from them and are financially ruined when all they want is to love their kids. Children deserve custody of both parents. Alienation has to stop. Our now 14-year-old is our youngest. That may have been the worst thing we've ever gone through, but I'd do it again for him. I will never not fight for my kids, and I will never not fight for other fathers going through this. If you know one, check on them. Hook them up with groups that can help give information and encouragement. Courts are not fair, and men feel the loss of their children, the same as a mother. They are hurting and grieving daily for a child that is still alive. They are losing hope and giving up. They are being made to feel guilty if they stop fighting because they are tired and broke. It's emotionally draining and leaves you completely depleted. These men eventually believe that it would be better for their kids if they walk away. They don't want them in the middle of the fighting anymore. Maybe the ex and judges convinced them they are not worthy, so their kids would be better without them.